As you know, Super Tuesday happened this week as 15 states and one U.S. territory held primaries and caucuses during which almost 900 delegates, 900 for the Republican Party, were up for grabs. Well, as expected, it was almost a clean sweep for President Trump, winning every state with the slim exception of Vermont. Put him right up to the threshold of the necessary delegates to win the nomination. He's now about 200 delegates shy of the 1,215 needed for the convention. And we still have 9 or 10 more states this month. We have 6 in April, we have 6 in May, and the final 4 states are in June. So with this commanding lead, we have virtually entered the general election. And as of yesterday, this is even more the case. As I correctly predicted, Nikki Haley suspended her campaign for president Wednesday morning. We're going to play what she said in full, so just take a listen.
Just over a year ago, I launched my campaign for president. When I began, I said the campaign was grounded in my love for our country. Just last week, my mother, a first-generation immigrant, got to vote for her daughter for president. Only in America. I am filled with the gratitude for the outpouring of support we've received from all across our great country. But the time has now come to suspend my campaign. I said I wanted Americans to have their voices heard. I have done that. I have no regrets. And although I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in. Our national debt will eventually crush our economy. A smaller federal government is not only necessary for our freedom, it is necessary for our survival. The road to socialism is the road to ruin for America. Our Congress is dysfunctional and only getting worse. It is filled with followers, not leaders. Term limits for Washington politicians are needed now more than ever. Our world is on fire because of America's retreat. Standing by our allies in Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan is a moral imperative. But it's also more than that. If we retreat further, there will be more war, not less. As important, while we stand strong for the cause of freedom, we must bind together as Americans. We must turn away from the darkness of hatred and division. I will continue to promote all those values, as is the right of every American. I sought the honor of being your president, but in our great country, being a private citizen is privilege enough in itself, and that's a privilege I very much look forward to enjoying. In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind." It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing. I end my campaign with the same words I began it, from the book of Joshua. I direct them to all Americans, but especially to so many of the women and girls out there who put their faith in our campaign. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for God will be with you wherever you go. In this campaign, I have seen our country's greatness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, America. God bless you.
I just want to say thanks to Nikki Haley for finally suspending, but I also want to say that I agree with most of what she said there. However, you can't call people to unity while you refuse to support the party's presumptive nominee. It is your job to mobilize your support base into the fold that everyone else finds themselves. It is what Vivek did, it's what DeSantis did, it's what you should have done, but congratulations on second place. Now, as I was saying, we've practically entered the general election season with the anticipated rematch of Biden and Trump, but I still think that the DNC will dump Biden at their convention this August, or sooner. I'm not the only one that thinks this, and it's honestly common sense when you read stories like the following from Politico. Now, this is just one headline and news story among many like it, but this is one from Politico. It's called 4 Reasons the Latest Polls Are Awful for Biden. Kaylee Garrity wrote this. A day after Democrats dragged a New York Times Siena College poll that showed the president falling 4 points behind his likely Republican opponent, former President Donald Trump, in a general election matchup, Sunday brought an additional 3 major surveys also showing Trump leading amid broad and deep dissatisfaction with the incumbent, meaning Biden. And when it comes to Trump, many seem to have abandoned misgivings they had about him during his time in office or during his tumultuous exit. So Politico is writing this piece about 4 different surveys which serve as humongous red flags to the Democrats and libs. And these concern issues with mock election polling, where Trump is polling ahead of Biden in almost every single national survey. These have to do with Biden's ability, or lack thereof, and also the shift on the narrative regarding Trump. In other words, this is terrible news for the Democrats. That's why a media outlet as liberal as Politico is sounding the alarms. Here's what they reported. Voters continue to be troubled by Biden's age and perceived acuity. 45% of those who responded in the New York Times Siena poll said that Biden's age is such a problem that he is not capable of handling the job of president. I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it, but Democrats are experts at projection, where they'll take some flaw and insufficiency about themselves and project it onto us. Like, I was reading some of my comments from this past week where people were blaming Trump for all the things that Biden has in fact done. But here's another example of this. Politico cites this information about Biden's age and mental acuity, and then they project, saying, despite Trump's own mix-ups and misstatements, in North Carolina on Saturday, he referred to the president as Obama. And the fact that at 77, he's not even 4 years younger than Biden, more than half, 55% of those in the Times poll said they somewhat or strongly disagreed that his age made him ineffective or incapable of carrying out the duties of the presidency. Now, there's a big whopping difference in getting Biden's name wrong one time and not being able to get through a coherent sentence or stand on your own 2 feet. There's a reason why on Tuesday night Biden didn't even appear in front of the cameras on Super Tuesday. But Politico is baffled as to how the survey participants largely felt that Trump was healthy for the job, despite being close to Biden's age. In Sunday's CBS News YouGov poll, 45% said only Trump was physically healthy enough to serve as president, compared to 17% who said only Biden was. So that was all concerning age and mental acuity. Now on to the economy. Despite months of good economic news and a long-shot soft landing from post-pandemic inflation, Americans can't seem to shake the feeling that the economy is in rough shape. Nearly 3/4 of those in the Times poll said the economy today is in poor or only fair shape, while 26% classified it as good or excellent. It's pretty simple, but I guess I have to explain it to the liberal 26%. Everything costs more, okay? It's harder for average Americans to make ends meet. It costs them more to drive to work to earn less money to pay for more expensive things. But when you live in the liberal bubble, the fantasy land, numbers like this don't make much sense. Really though, the bad news that they're trying to cover up is that they know that this is Biden's fault. It's 100% his fault. Immediately upon his entrance to office, Biden took a sledgehammer to America's number one breadwinner, oil production and oil companies. And then magically, lo and behold, gas got more expensive and diesel got more expensive. That means the farmer has to pay more, which means the shipper has to pay more, which means the grocer has to pay more, which means that you have to pay more. And when you have to pay more, there's less money in your pocket. America is suffering greatly from that single policy by itself. And don't think for 1 second that it's ignorance. It's absolutely intentional, and I'll prove it to you in the weeks to come. It's what they said they would do. They said that they would do this. But Politico continues on their bewilderment on the economic reaction. In the CBS News poll, 57% said the current conditions are very, very or fairly bad. Despite a pandemic-induced crash during Trump's final year in office, 65% remember the economy under Trump as being very or fairly good, while only 28% remember it as being very or fairly bad. And those 28% are probably people who read your articles, Politico, and watch CNN, where they're lied to about Trump's time in office on an hourly, weekly basis. Trump is, in fact, correct when he talks about his administration creating the greatest economy in American history. That's why most remember it being good. Because guess what? Things were cheaper. It was easier to live financially. People had money in the bank. Gas was significantly cheaper, etc., etc. It's not rocket science. And they even inadvertently blame the pandemic as the reason for any economic downturn in Trump's time in office. But now they move on to immigration. And so you're starting to see what the most important issues are in this piece and in this election. The top issue for voters in the Wall Street Journal poll was immigration. 20% picked it when asked for the issue that most comes to mind for their 2024 presidential vote, more than the economy, which was 14%, or abortion at 8%. Though Biden has escalated his rhetoric on the issue, punting the blame on congressional Republicans who recently blocked a bipartisan border bill, voters still seem to believe that Trump would do more to stem the flow. Yes, Biden, blame the Republicans for blocking your legislative Band-Aid, when in fact, the immigration crisis is directly attributable to your policies. You wanted it to be this way. You got what you wanted, tens of millions of unknowns that can be leveraged for political power. But now that it's come back to bite you, your false humanitarianism has vanished, and everything is your opponent's fault. See what I mean by projection? They caused the problem, and we're blamed for it. And of course, Donald Trump would stem the flow because he's already done that. And he was very, very effective at it. That's why he was ridiculed and labeled a racist and drugged through the mud for, putting kids in cages, despite the fact that it was President Obama who created such containers. Take a look at this graphic from Pew Research. April of 2020, Trump's last year in office, was one of the lowest years on record for migrant encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border, with only 16,000 encounters that month, April of 2020. Now, look at the end of the chart on the right. That's December 2023, just this past December, which saw just shy of 249,735 249,735 migrant encounters just in that month. And who was president then? Oh yeah, that's right. It was Joseph Robinette Biden. Politico continues on this subject. 45% of those who took the CBS News survey consider the situation a crisis, and half think a second Biden term would mean an increase in the number of migrants coming over the border. Meanwhile, 72% think a second Trump term would result in a decrease in migrants attempting to cross the southern border. Well, that's encouraging to know that the majority aren't that stupid on this subject, but the writers at Politico aren't a part of that majority, unfortunately. Here's what they said next. Half of respondents said they strongly or somewhat support making it harder for migrants at the southern border to seek asylum in the United States. That is not the issue, libs. We're not talking about legal immigration. We're talking about illegal invasion. Criminals and thieves are flowing into our country, practically unhindered, to pillage our country. And you fail to see reality. Now, the last part of the article talks about these mock election polls. Like, if you were to vote today, who would you vote for? Look at the conclusion. Trump beat Biden in a head-to-head matchup in all four of the major polls out this weekend, but by only a few points. This is why I think that Biden has to go for them to be able to win. In regard to that, though, one of the rumored replacements all along put those rumors to rest this week. Michelle Obama is not going to sub in for President Biden, the Washington Examiner reported. Former First Lady Michelle Obama confirmed that she will not try to return to the White House, putting the rumors that she could replace President Joe Biden as a presidential candidate to rest. The Obama's office stated, as former First Lady Michelle Obama has expressed several times over the years, she will not be running for president. Ms. Obama supports President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris's re-election campaign. Thanks for watching today. Listen, I want to make sure that you stay informed on the news and the biblical response to it. So do yourself and us a favor and hit the subscribe button before you go. And then we would love for you to check out wethefreeshow.com to grab yourself some merch, to spread the word of We the Free. And we're also going to put a video on the screen that we think that you'll like. Now, go and be that salt and light, and we'll see you next time.